Well, is this it? Is this last chance saloon for Michael Carrick? And will the man who puts the final nail in his coffin be his arch nemesis, Mark Robins? What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Project Boro preview show. Do not know how on earth I've still got the energy to discuss this team, run through each and every game, because recently, as we all know, it has been horrendous. Boro have their game in hand on Tuesday evening away to Stoke City. Of course, a game that was rescheduled from Stoke getting themselves into the next round of the FA Cup a few weeks ago, and a game which I thought was the reason Michael Carrick was given an extra little bit of time as Boro boss. I genuinely thought the only reason why he was not kept on, or the only reason he wasn't sacked, should I say, after the Watford defeat over a week ago, was because he had two games coming up. Both were away from home, firstly, which is away from the Riverside, where the atmosphere, of course, was incredibly toxic. And I thought the next two games presented a chance for him to go away from home and maybe under a bit less pressure, get Boro moving in the right direction once again. Obviously, Bristol City did not go to plan at all, but Stoke was the game in hand, to which I thought to myself, it was literally the perfect opportunity, the open goal, you could say, for Carrick to get a free game that none of the other teams that were competing with, or maybe were competing with, past tense, for the playoffs, none of them other teams have this game. The perfect chance to make up essentially 3 free points on them teams, take what you could have argued was a false position in the league to a true reflection on where Boro actually are. But things have been so bad, it's not actually going to make that much of a difference, because we are, of course, now down to 13th after the weekend's round of games. As we sort of predicted, Norwich jumped us, Millwall jumped us, and Boro now sit in the bottom half of the Championship. 7 defeats in 8, 5 in a row. And even with a win in our game in hand, it would take us up to 10th maybe, just below Norwich, depending on goal difference. You're still then 4 points off the playoffs, which isn't that bad, but is still, when you look at the teams in between us in the playoffs, still a huge task with the form that they're in. So even the game in hand here that I thought was a real big chunk of insurance for Michael Carrick doesn't feel all that great. And if it felt like a must-win before, it feels like an absolute must-win now. But I said, if he didn't win either, or if not both of the Bristol City and Stoke games, his race would be run. So, if he loses on Tuesday, maybe this will be it for Michael Carrick. So we've said a few times, win or bust, win or sacked. This could be legitimately win or bust. And it would be quite poetic in a sense that the very man who could put the final nail in the coffin is Mark Robins, the manager who has had Carrick's number each and every time we have come up against him, albeit each of them previous times were against Coventry. It still would be kind of poetic if that was the case. So who knows, maybe this will be it for Michael Carrick if he doesn't get a victory. I don't think a point is enough because of the position Stoke are in. Or maybe he'll just get given till the end of the season anyway. Or Boro might just put an interim in, because if we don't win here, the season is near enough all but over, you'd have to say. Maybe he'll get Saturday. I don't know at this point. I really don't know what to expect from Boro on a week-to-week basis, other than potentially a defeat. So we'll see what comes of the Stoke game. So let's discuss Stoke City then, because they aren't actually in the best of places, but they are in a typical Stoke kind of place. They're sitting exactly where Stoke have sat for the last 83 years. It feels like they're 19th in the Championship league table, right in that little bit of habitat they've lived in for God knows how long now. And of the 33 games they've played, they've won only 8, drew 11 and lost 14, scoring 33 and conceding 44. In terms of recent form, Stoke have lost 2 of their last 3 league games. However, prior to that little mini bad run they've had, they did go I think, unbeaten in a few. I think they lost only 1 in 7 before this recent bad run, if you want to call a 3-game run a bad run. But even though recent form hasn't been great before that, they were doing all right. And of the 3 games that they've just had, the 1 win did come at home against Swansea in a 3-1 win. But I just find Stoke incredibly unpredictable anyway. It's pointless putting your hat on them being really good or really bad or predicting what they're going to do, to be honest with you. They are such an unpredictable side. They could rock up and be great and beat Boro. They might be absolutely awful. And they might give Boro an opportunity to get our season or get something back on track if our season hasn't already gone off the rails completely already. So a very, very tough team to judge in terms of recent form. If you look at their home form, they're not great either. They're down in 20th for home form, but they're not actually all that bad. I remember when we discussed Bristol City in the last preview, they'd only lost 3 times at home all season. Stoke have only lost 4, I guess. They've got a positive goal difference. I think the problem is they've only won 5 games at home this season. They've drew 7. So they would like to win a lot more at the Bet365, I'm sure, but they've not lost anywhere near as many of the home games as they have compared to some of the teams in and around them down in the table. So although not the best home side, they could definitely do better as well. But they are unbeaten in their last 4 home games. As I say, they did recently beat Swansea 3-1 at home. So that's where they're getting some of their joy at the moment. But still, with Stoke, who the hell knows what to expect. As for their numbers then, delving a bit deeper into them going forwards and going backwards, a huge positive for Boro is that Stoke are a very, very poor attacking side in the Championship. They are 23rd, joint 2nd bottom of the Championship for goals per game. They have the 2nd worst record in front of goal in the Championship. They've scored only 33 goals this season, and that is joint worst with Derby and Hull. Only Luton Town have scored less with 31. So they are not a very good attack at all. That's kind of backed up by their XG. They're slightly higher, and this is what I find crazy about the Championship. Stoke have a higher XG than Burnley, which is mental, but Stoke have 18th for XG. 33 goals is what they've scored, XG of 37.2. So they have slightly underperformed in front of goal, but their expected goals and the quality of chances they've created is pretty much in and around where they are in the league table, if we're absolutely honest. That's paired with a few of the other attacking numbers we always look at. So they're 19th for shots on target, so they're right down the bottom for the number of shots they have on goal. 15th for big chances, again, right in the midst of the bottom half of the table. Mid-table for big chances missed. So a very, very poor attack, which you'd like to think would give Boro's defence, some very leaky defence, a better chance of staying shut and being solid this weekend. But we'll believe that when we see it, won't we? In terms of Stoke's defence, this is where I find them incredibly fascinating, because you look at their defence, I think it's actually not too bad. They're mid-table for goals conceded. They've actually conceded 1 less goal than what Boro have this season. We've conceded 45 goals. We're now down in 14th for our defence overall, which is absolutely awful, really, when you think about it. But Stoke have a slightly better defence than us, conceding 1 less goal. So 13th for goals against. Okay, mid-table, that's okay. But this is where I find them incredibly fascinating, because albeit their goals against numbers look good, the quality of chances they've gave up this season is astounding. They have the 2nd highest XG against in the whole league. Only Plymouth have gave up higher quality chances this season than Stoke. Their XG against stands at 56.9 goals against. So pretty much 57 goals is what they should have conceded this season. They've only conceded 44. That's an overperformance of 13 goals. That is absolutely bonkers. They should have conceded so many more than what they have done. Paired that with Boro, we're the other way. We've massively, we should have conceded far less than what we have. We've underperformed by 7 goals against, but Stoke have overperformed by 13. And you think, well, how the hell Have they conceded so many high-quality chances and yet conceded less than what Boro have? Well, it comes down to their goalkeeper, because I think barring James Trafford at Burnley and Michael Cooper at Sheffield United, Stoke have, pound for pound, I think, the best goalkeeper in the Championship with Victor Johansson. His numbers, quite honestly, are ridiculous, and Stoke need to thank their lucky stars that they have him in their team. Now, his save percentage is up there. He's 6th in the Championship for save percentage. You won't be surprised there isn't a Boro goalkeeper anywhere in sight. When it comes to these numbers, 74% of shots he's saved, which is 3 in every 4, which is pretty darn good. But then you look at his other goalkeeping numbers. He's got the most saves per 90 in the Championship. He makes almost 4 saves a game, which pairs up with the XG against and the number of chances that Stoke concede in games. But he is there to bail them out every single time. Almost 4 saves per game, the highest in the league, and he's also made the most overall saves in the Championship by a mile. 125 saves he's made in the league this season. The next closest is Oxford's goalkeeper Jamie Cumming, who's made 113. You've then got Thomas Kaminski of Luton, who's made 107. So he is the busiest goalkeeper in the Championship. He makes the most saves per game in the Championship. His save percentage is in the top 6 in the Championship. And when you look at his goals prevented numbers, to which Boro's goalkeepers have been absolutely awful and probably the worst in the league, he's the best in the league. He has around 11 goals prevented numbers, the highest in the Championship. So that takes basically the number of goals that should be scored against him compared to the ones that he's actually kept out. So basically what these numbers tell you is without Victor Johansson, Stoke would be in huge trouble, but he bails them out time and time again. So Boro shouldn't really have much to worry about when it comes to Stoke's attack. Surely, if we do the basics and don't make any stupid mistakes, we should keep them out because they're not a great attack. That's proven. Defensively, even though their goals against numbers look good, they're very, very leaky. They should really, in theory, give Boro a ton of opportunities as well. It's all about whether we can get past the brick wall that is Victor Johansson. So again, he might prove to be the key. The game might be won and lost in Stoke's goal or in Boro's defence, to which it might depend on how many opportunities we gift a fairly unimaginative attack in Stoke's. We'll have to wait and see. Looking a bit closer into Stoke's 11 and some of their individual players, there are a few that catch the eye, I would say. They tend to play a 4-2-3-1. Obviously, we've seen in the past, Mark Robins sets his teams up and always has done in a sort of box midfield to really, prevent Boro's creative players from having much of an influence. I don't know if he'll be able to do that in this system, but looking at their back 5, there's no one there that really stands out to me as a particularly top-end Championship centre-back. As I say, Victor Johansson is the standout player in that entire back 5. In the midfield, I still think it should be a midfield battle. We would like to dominate and win, although Ben Pearson in their central midfield is a player I've always really liked. He's the sort of player I'd love at Boro as a sort of backup to Aidan Morris, potentially. I think he's a very solid Championship midfielder they've got in there. But it's their attackers which I feel like could hurt Boro on their day, and they have done at times throughout this season when we've met them previously. Bae Jun-ho is one of their highest creators. He's quite a threat down their left-hand side. Not quite at the level of players we've come up against in recent games, but could possibly cause us a problem. They've got Moran on the other side, another young player who is tricky. I'd expect Boro to be able to deal with him, I'd like to think. But the likes of Manhoff, Kumas, good players, good wide players, they've caused Boro problems when we faced them in the earlier parts of the season, especially in the cup game when they come to Riverside, of course, and won by 5-0. So we'll see if any of them can do the same as what they've done to Boro previously. But I think with Boro's best defence in place, I'd like to think we'd be okay against their wide players. The one big player who does concern me a little bit is Lewis Baker. He is in good form. He got a brace in their last game, albeit it was a 4-2 defeat to Norwich at the weekend, but he did get a brace that day, so he's a player I think is worth looking out for. And up front, El Mohammadi has been a decent championship player in the past for Ipswich last season. He did okay. Don't know if he's at the ground running particularly for Stoke as yet, but I think it tells you all you need to know that Tom Cannon is still their highest goal scorer, and he left in January. Their highest goal scorer now is Lewis Baker. He's only got 5 goals. As I mentioned, June Hobe or Bae Jun Ho is their highest creator with only 5 assists. So for me, there's still not many individuals that particularly scare me. I go back to what I was saying earlier. It might be down to whether Boro shoot themselves in the foot and gift Stoke's players chances. There's not too much in this team that petrifies me, I would say, other than their goalkeeper and, quite honestly, their manager. So we'll see. We'll see if Boro can stand tall against this Stoke side. As I say, they have just come off the back of a 4-2 defeat at Norwich, which is quite a damaging one, where they did chip in quite a few goals. So this should be a game Boro should, really, let's be absolutely honest, form out the window. Forget about Boro's form. With our players and their players, no excuses for why Boro shouldn't be able to go there and get a result. But which Boro team will go there and get a result? That is the question. Now, for me, I've been preaching for a back three for a few weeks now. I've kind of gave up on that happening at all. So this week I've tried to look at, well, the way Boro have been playing in recent games and what possibly we can do to get the most out of what Carrick is currently doing. Now, he is trying to tweak things. He has stuck us in a 4-4-2. We have seemed a little bit more compact, a little bit better defensively, albeit we're still conceding goals. But we've really, really struggled going forward. And there's a few reasons for that. I've sort of given up on the back three. This is kind of a mix of what I would do within the parameters of what I think Carrick will do. Obviously, we're not going to get a back three. We're not going to get what I would want. But in terms of what he's kind of been doing recently, this is what I'd do to tweak it. I think the back five, I think it picks itself. You know, Dyke still didn't have the greatest game against Bristol City, but I'd still play him over Luke Ayling. I was delighted to see Fry come in for Edmondson. I'd definitely keep that back centre-back pairing as it is. I thought Travers kept us in the game against Bristol City, as he has done for the past few. And Neto Borges was one of the few who came out of it with any credit, I would say. He's had a good couple of games, certainly more improved than what he has been. Midfield 2 picks itself because we've got nobody else. And I don't think there's much other options in the front four either, with Bergzog on one side, Whittaker on the other. And I mentioned, you know, without Ben Doak and Lati Lath, we really, really struggle offensively. You know, without Doak, we've got no width. We've got no pace in behind. Without Lath, we've not got anyone who can hustle and harry and press a centre-back or a defence. So we've got to try and pick other ways to get through and create goals. Now, Bergzog and Whittaker, they're just going to come central. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. So I don't know where the width's going to come from with our attackers. The only answer, I guess, is to play Ryan Giles at left back and he can overlap and provide width. He might come back in, you know, apparently he was ill against Bristol City, so there's every chance he could come back in, but I think it would be harsh on Neto Borges. So we're not going to have width, we're not going to have pace. That's why I would reintroduce Finn Azaz. Now, he's been widely out of form, but in playing the way Boro play, in this system and setup, I think the only way we're going to find any form of creativity and any form of chance creation is if we get Finn Azaz back in the team and just hope and pray that he can get back to form somehow. Because quite honestly, with Whittaker and Bergzog one side, Conway and Iheanacho together, there's just not enough width, mobility, pace in that team, in that attacking four at all. So for me, you've got to try and get Finn Azaz playing again. You've got to try and get him in form. He's been out the team for a bit. I'd give him another opportunity here and just hope that he can find a moment of brilliance, whether it's from himself or playing in any of the other three around him. And I think then maybe we might be able to find something, because for all that Boro have been a great attacking side this season, in recent games, we actually haven't. So I'd chuck him back in there. I do worry there is a clause potentially that's forcing us to play Iheanacho to the level we are, because he's just not offering us enough. He shouldn't be playing the minutes he's playing. He's just simply not fit enough. So you either play him for a half and take him off, which Carrick never will, because he never makes changes before the 83rd minute for God's sake, or you bench him and maybe bring him on late to make an impact when the opposition is a bit tired. So I don't see why he continues to start Iheanacho. I think Conway, he's our player long term. He's ours. So's Azaz. So's Bergzog. So's Whittaker. So if the lone player isn't coming in and making a difference, drop him for one of our own. Bring Finn Azaz back in and just hope and pray that the guy can make a difference. So that's what I'd do within the parameters and I guess expectations of what I think Michael Carrick might do at the same time. Head-to-head wise, it's not too bad for Boro, albeit exactly like Bristol City, we do not have a good record recently against Stoke at all at the Bet365. So since both sides got relegated, or were both relegated to the Championship since 2018, and we started playing each other on a regular basis, we've played each other 14 times in League and Cup. Boro have won 6, there's been 4 draws, and Stoke have won 4 times. So Boro do have the edge in the overall head-to-head, but a lot of the joy has come at the Riverside for Boro. Of course, in recent memory, we did beat them in the reverse fixture 2-0 at the Riverside, but prior to that, Stoke did come up here and win 5-0 in the League Cup. So it's been one each in terms of our meetings this season. But in terms of going to the Bet365, Boro haven't won there since June 2020. We've not won in any of our last 4 trips to Stoke. Exactly like Bristol City, we've lost 2 and drew 2. So it's not a happy hunting ground for Boro. It hasn't been for a while. And we're obviously going up against Mark Robins, who always has our number. So a bit like Bristol City, it just feels like the sort of fixture that has everything going against Boro and is another huge bogey ground. A bogey manager, a bit of a bogey team at a bogey ground, and it looks like another huge uphill task for Michael Carrick. So, finishing with my prediction. Now, I had a gut feeling we would probably lose to Bristol City, but I predicted we'd draw, as that was my absolute peak optimistic prediction that I could go for. However, in my heart of hearts, and you know me, I'm always honest, I'm always realistic, I don't think we'll lose here. I really don't. Stoke are off the back of a really bad defeat. I know they've been better at home, but I feel like they're not in the best place. Boro are in an awful place, but we've got to pick a point up somewhere. We can't lose 6 in a row. Surely. I mean, just surely we can't lose 6 in a row. And I think, and this is me honestly, my honest belief, this isn't me with a hopeful prediction when I actually expect it to be worse. This is what I expect and what I hope. I think we will pick up a point. I think we'll scrape a point. I think it'll be 2 really poor sides slugging it out, and I've gone with a 1-1 draw. Now, I don't have enough confidence that we'll win. There's just nothing to suggest we'll win. I don't even have enough confidence we'd beat Derby at the weekend, and they've not won in 12. So that could be a right old shit off at the weekend when Derby come to town. But quite honestly, maybe it's just the potential of Boro losing 6 in a row that I just can't accept. But I think we'll get a point. I'll think we'll draw. The other question, where will that leave Michael Carrick? Now, I did say, as I mentioned before, Bristol City or post-Watford, I very much thought that if we didn't win either one of the 2 or both of our 2 games against Bristol City and Stoke, he'd be out. And part of me still feels like if something goes drastically wrong at Stoke, the trigger might be pulled because, as I say, this was the game in hand that I think they were holding out to give him. And God forbid if we lose. I mean, you can't fork out any more excuses for the guy if we were to lose again away to Stoke. But there is a degree of poetry in it being Mark Robins, being the man who puts Carrick down in his final game. But there's still a part of me that thinks even if we drew or lost narrowly, unless it wasn't an absolute car crash, I still think he'll get given another game. I honestly feel like at this point, maybe Boro are just accepting that this season is a write-off, just staggering to the end of the season and waiting until the summer to bring in the right man. And if the right man's not available now and they want to wait till the summer, that's fine with me. But I am also surprised that they've not thought of a temporary interim to chuck in, between now and then, or maybe they don't see the value in chucking an interim in because they don't think that would improve things at all. Maybe there just isn't a better option, and the club are just trudging along with blind faith that game by game, some form of life will emerge from this Boro side, and things will start to turn eventually. But quite honestly, lose this game, the season is done. Win this game, the gap's 4 points. There's maybe a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel, but it has to then be backed up by a win on Saturday at home to Derby. So this does feel like a pivotal game. It really does. Lose here, I don't even want to go to the home game against Derby at the weekend because the Watford game was toxic. I can't even begin to imagine how uncomfortable it might be sat in the Riverside at home to Derby at the weekend. So for that reason and for that game alone, for my Saturday afternoon, I really hope and pray we can find a result here just so that game isn't as bad. I'd love a win. But I don't think we'll get it. I think it will be a draw. Maybe they'll pull the trigger. If there's someone available, they probably will. But if there's no one available, they might just keep cracking on, and they might go after a certain specific individual in the summer, which I wouldn't begrudge the club from doing either. But at the moment, as I say, I'm relatively apathetic about this season anyway. I'm not really bothered either way what happens at this point. I'm just watching and going to the games out of obligation and hoping something turns my head and catches my eye, because at the moment, the season's as good as dead and buried. It's on the flab. It's ready to be set alight. It's ready to be cremated and buried forever. I think this result could be that, or maybe there's a glimmer of hope. We'll find out. But let me know your thoughts and predictions on this game in the comments, guys. Do you think this could be the final opportunity for Carrick to turn things around? And if so, will he? Or will this be the final nail in the coffin? Or won't it make a difference? Will it just be another defeat and we just keep stumbling and staggering along towards the end of this season, which is pretty much on the brink of being over? Let me know your predictions and thoughts, whether you're a Boro fan, Stoke fan, in the comments. And as always, if you've enjoyed the video, hit a like on it, subscribe for more, and leave a comment. As I say, I'll be back on Wednesday to review whatever the hell happens down at the Bet365 Stadium. And if you want to listen to these videos on the go, you can do via links in the description, where there are links to your chosen podcast providers where you can listen to the videos as and when you please. If you do, leave me a like and a rating and a follow over on your chosen podcast provider. But until then, guys, do take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.